Okay, this is lesson 2, parts identification. And before we get into the video, I just want to talk a little bit about the importance of being able to identify the parts. And really the biggest thing is when you go into the bike shop that you can actually speak intelligently about your bike and you'll be able to communicate better with the mechanic and the people in the shop what's wrong with your bike. Instead of saying, oh, the shifter thingamabob isn't working right, you can say the rear derailleur isn't working right or whatnot. And also, it's just helpful if you ever buy new parts or something. You need to know the basic parts of the bike. Now, again, as if in everything else in this course, I don't expect you to be a huge expert on this, but try and get to know the basics. And it's also important when you're buying a new bike. They always like to give specs, and you want to try and understand what they're talking about. Okay, so here we go. We're going to dive right into all the different parts on the bike. First thing, you're looking at the brake lever and then the shift lever, also known as brake shift lever combo. Brake caliper, the cables, stem, handlebars. This is a part of the handlebars, the handlebar drop. Crank arms, those are the individual arms. Chain rings, or front chain rings, front derailleur, rear derailleur, cassette, also known as cogs, chain of course, then seat post, seat, and of course water bottle cages, and frame. I know it's some of this seems a little basic, but it's really important to know. Now, I just want to mention here, if you go in the notes, you'll see this image in there, and kind of scan through it and see if you can identify all those parts. Maybe look at your own bike and see if you can pick out all the parts and give the correct name to those parts. It's not important that you memorize every single one, but it's good that you have a pretty good overview so when you go to the bike shop or you're ordering a part, you know what you're talking about. I apologize that the audio is a little off. I had to re-record a voiceover because we had a problem with the video audio. So anyway, I want to help you identify some of the parts on the frame. This is the fork and the fork blades. This is the head tube. This is really important from a fit perspective. And that little thing, the bearings in there is called the head set. Now, overall, we just call that the frame. And then the way it works, you have the front triangle. You know, it's pretty simple. You know, so it looks like a front triangle. And then you have the rear triangle. Now, there's different geometry things from a fit perspective and from a ride quality perspective. But from a fit perspective, the important thing is seat tube. So when a company calls a bike a 54 centimeter, they're measuring from the bottom bracket to the top on the seat tube. You can see me pointing in the video. Now, if you look at the top tube is very, very important. And there's something the manufacturers will call, it's called a virtual top tube length. And it's really confusing. But essentially what they mean is they're taking a horizontal line straight across, a level line straight across, even if the top tube slopes down, and that's the measurement from a fit perspective. But the actual tube is called the top tube. And the head tube length is another critical fit dimension. When you're shopping for a bike, you might want to think about that. That's the down tube, seat tube. Okay, and it's really confusing. Seat stays, because they go up to the seat, and these are chain stays. You know, it's pretty simplistic. These are called dropouts because the wheel drops out of there. And you have dropouts on the back of the bike, and you have dropouts on the front of the bike. You have the bottom bracket shell. That's where the bottom bracket bearings for the crank go in that hole. This particular bike doesn't have it in there right now. And that's pretty much about it. That's